guys. So this is just delete me. Okay. So once again, this is not this is not an ad, but essentially what this is, it's just a huge list of different websites that you might be familiar with, and then it'll easily, just through one click, link you to the website that you need to be able to delete your data. Okay. So just to give you guys a quick demonstration of what that looks like.
Mo ba si Mami? Adala
Oh.
niya yung sasakyan?
I think someone has their mic on. Click show info, and it'll basically just explain, visit the link page and delete your account. I won't click this because I'm afraid that it will redirect me to my real Google information. But I know for Amazon, for example, if I search up Amazon, let me use this example. So yeah, if I want to delete my Amazon information, right? What it'll do, okay, it's apparently easy. Okay, so let me click on this. Okay, and then this is not a phishing link, by the way, but it'll essentially just redirect you to the exact page that you need to delete your information off that platform. But
Lucas, you're muted right now. I think you just did that like right now by accident.
hello? Hello?
Yeah, we can
Oh, we can hear you now.
How long was I muted?
Just a second. You'll be fine.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't click anything. That was weird. But yeah, I would seriously suggest you guys check this website out, because me personally, I had a bunch of websites because I was chronically online that I had an account linked to, and I've used this to unlink lots of accounts and basically save my data from being used online for things that I'm not aware of. So yeah, so it is almost 7, but I think we have time for one more topic, actually. Should I talk about Google dorking? Let's see. I don't think we have time for it. Okay, so we're a bit ahead of schedule. So let me actually give you guys a little bit of a demo for something called Google dorking. So I actually had slides about this, and I can't seem, it was on the one from last course, but I'll actually just show it off to you guys right now, because I feel like we haven't had that many demos yet for this course, especially for technical things. But just quickly, let me teach you guys of what Google dorking is, right? So let me go to Google right now. Okay. Actually, let me use a private window just to be sure. Okay. Let's go to Google. All right. So what many of you guys may use when you're trying to search something up for school or whatever the case is, you would just search something like this. So say, for example, I want to search up, who is Jeffrey Bezos, or Jeffrey, whatever, Jeffrey, I don't know, hopefully he's not a bad guy. You would search it like this, right? You would do so with a sentence. But for those who are familiar with programming, there are things called parameters that you can use, that you can do hyper detailed search results. And what that may look like, I know that might sound a bit ambiguous right now, but say if I do this. So I want to search up about, for example, I want to search up about Superman, okay? So what I'm going to do, okay, is I'm going to do in text, okay, Superman. Now, this might look weird, right? This looks a bit like code, right? But essentially what this is that this is a search parameter behind the scenes of Google that will limit your search results only to websites that include this word in it. So you might be able to see how useful this might be if you're a cybersecurity researcher, like we mentioned in the first course, and also for hackers and bots as well. Because actually, let me just demo this to you guys right now. So in text, Superman. So as you can see here, the results, it'll bold Superman. So it'll only give me websites, okay, that have the word Superman in it. What if I wanted only websites that have the word Superman in it, but especially GitHub sites? Oh, github.com, whoops. It'll list all the GitHub sites, right, that have Superman in it. So I guess you can see how interesting that might be. But, okay, this could be used for malicious purposes. So in future courses, I'll actually show the slides for this about more like information about Google dorking, because I don't have them right now. But say, for example, okay, can I actually show you guys right now? Let me demo this. Oh wait, I'm on the wrong computer. Dang it. Okay, yeah, let me just show you guys one thing. So say, for example, okay, for those who are familiar with GitHub, you can actually see what websites refer to your GitHub project. Once again, I'll show more in detail about what this looks like in the future. But let me actually see. Can people in the council put in the chat the, actually, no. Let me do something real quick. I want to give you guys a better example. Sorry, I didn't think the course was going to go this fast this time. Where is the slides? Anyways, I'll just show you guys an example. So essentially, let me find the site, Google dorking list. I don't have the link. I'll just show you guys right now. But I do remember the site. It is this one. So I did mention about Google dorking, and this might not make much sense right now. But the reason this is important for online web searches is because attackers can actually use this to find information online that is sensitive, that you might not expect there to be online. So for example, here's a very, very big list of different Google dorks that can give you sensitive information. So I would never, for any of you guys here, use any of this to retrieve sensitive information that isn't yours. I want to mention that because this can be used very, very maliciously. I would only use Google dorking if you're trying to test like a website that you have made, or you want to do background research on yourself to see what you can find online. Because like, let me show you guys another example, right? Let me go to Google. It works better on Google. I could have just searched it there. But say I want to do an investigation on, on someone. You think someone could be a risk to you. You think someone that's talking to you could be a criminal. What you can do is that you can do in text, okay, the person's name. So we'll do John Doe, the infamous John Doe. Oh, sorry, I typed it wrong. You can do in text John Doe, right? So of course, that'll give you all websites related to John Doe. But what if you do John Doe arrested, right? It'll give you all the websites, okay, that have the word John Doe and arrested in it. And as you can see, for example, here, there's a government website that can provide some pretty useful information about that, right? So actually, I'm not going to go to that. But what if you also want it in a PDF format? This is important. You can also do file type. You can do I typed that right, PDF. Now it'll give you all results of John Doe arrested in a PDF format. So as you can see here, it'll be in a PDF format. So I don't want to start investigating some like the random John Doe. For those who don't know, John Doe is basically just a placeholder name. But as you can see here, there are lots of ways that attackers can actually use this to get private information online. Specifically, there are certain security cameras who have ways that you can actually find private live camera feeds by using Google dorking. And this is often done by, someone slipping up and actually putting a redirect or like a little reference to a URL that might, refer to the live camera feed. Another thing would be someone's personal information. So I'm actually going to use this on myself. I think it would be justice if I use this on myself. But say, for example, another reason this can be used for security reasons, besides just security research, whether it's you want to do it on a specific criminal or on a specific asset, you can also see where your information ends up on the internet. So I'm going to use this on myself. So say, for example, I want to search up my email. Where does my email show up on the internet, right? I'm just going to put it, say, actually, no, I'm not going to do that. I don't want any hackers to watch this, to steal my information. But essentially, yeah, I hope you guys get the point. A lot of attackers and bots use this to steal specific information. For the coders out there, this can also be used for API key theft. So I'm assuming most of you guys are in tech and you guys know what an API key is, but it's pretty common that people make the mistake of putting sensitive information in their project files or in their code and upload it online to be public for anyone to see. So that's why Google dorking is something that you need to be aware of, because if you have your API key with a very easily detectable variable name inside of your GitHub project, attackers can just use a Google dork to search up every single time an API key variable shows up on GitHub and basically just steal people's API keys. And that's why it's important that you make sure that your API keys are safe on your GitHub projects. Once again, don't ever use this for unethical reasons. As cybersecurity specialists, let me actually go back to the slides. I don't want you guys to just look at a Google page, but it's important that for all of us in cybersecurity, that all the details and the information that we use to ensure our security, that includes testing our security, is used for ethical reasons only. And we use this to test our own assets or assets that we personally or explicitly have authority to test on. So Google dorking, I didn't say this for you guys can start hacking to everyone. I'm just saying this as a forum for you guys to be aware of it and to research your own selves online. Because once again, keeping yourself secure as well as being a professional that can keep others secure is important. Yeah, I see it is 7:01. So I believe that is time for Dominic Vogel. Is Dominic here? I believe it is quite a bit early. Let's just see.
Oh, Lucas.
Yes.
He is there, I think.
He is here. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing my screen. So everyone, I hope you guys kept your questions, your experienced questions for Dominic. So we're going to hand over the presentation to Dominic. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen.
Oh, I'm just going to share like the presentation. Okay. Give me 1 second. Okay. Okay. So basically, Lucas, did you go over this slide?
No, I didn't. Sorry. So yeah, basically, do you want me to cover it really quick?
Yeah.
Okay. So essentially, of course, this course, a lot of course words. In this session, this boot camp, this course, we're trying to give you guys direction. So we're not going to make you guys super professionals. We're trying to give you guys some direction so you guys can spec into specific parts of cybersecurity, because like we discussed, it's a very, very large field with different types of specialties. So we're going to refer you guys these following resources for you guys to learn off course and learn a bit more about internet safety specifically. So starting with number one, we have Khan Academy. and they have a course on internet safety. So I believe we actually covered this in one or the previous session. So if you guys haven't already searched this up already, I would, this will be provided by the council, so you guys can go check out. But it is a very, very good little online course for you to learn a bit more about internet security and learn a bit more about the details that we've covered in this session. And another thing is IBM Skills Build, cybersecurity. And another thing is Coursera. So Coursera is, if you've heard of Udemy, it's another platform where people can buy online courses. And there's a really good one on foundations of cybersecurity that you guys can refer to and learn more about cybersecurity for this course. Yeah, and also as well, scan the QR code at the bottom to start the quiz. But please don't start right now. Please ask your questions or listen to Dominic and do the quiz afterwards, because I promise you, you guys are really going to want to hear what Dominic has to say. Yeah, that's it for this slide, and I'll hand it over to the council.
Yep.
Or Dominic.
Thank you. Thank you, Lucas. So up next is our speaker, Dominic Vogel, who has experience and he is here with us today to give you a little bit of insight on cybersecurity. So give him a welcome. Etiquette reminders, just please maintain a level of professionalism while speaking to our facilitators, guest speakers in the chat, and please raise hand function if you'd like to speak, and do not bombard or harass our speakers after the bootcamp with messages, and please be kind, respectful, and patient. And here's our speaker. Would you like to give us an introduction and a little bit of background?
Yeah, absolutely. And I was just laughing with the bombardment and harassment. I maybe could pass that note along to my kids. That would be fantastic. But I'm really grateful to be here. Really looking forward to talking with everyone today. There is no PowerPoint presentation because to me, this is about trying to make this as entertaining and engaging as possible. I've had the great pleasure of already chatting with Lucas, so I'm really looking forward to sharing with all of you sort of what I believe as being, cyber is one of the best career fields out there, and I like giving what I refer to as the secret sauce in terms of how to truly accelerate your career in the field and sort of tell you what people aren't telling you. I've been in cyber for over 20 years. I'm very fortunate to be in this field. When I first started, it was referred to as information security. So things have evolved very much over the past 20 years, and I've had the opportunity to have various corporate roles for organizations, big and small. I've done consulting work for some of the largest organizations in Canada, and past 10 years as an entrepreneur, I had the opportunity to work with some of the smallest organizations, working a lot with small and mid-sized organizations, and to where I am right now, where I focus much of my efforts in terms of more so providing coaching and cyber leadership to organizations and to individuals, people who are long-time leaders and are trying to brush up on their communication capabilities with executives or board of directors, all the way down to communicating with and coaching people who are new to the field, new to their career, and trying to get a leg up. So that's who I am in a nutshell. If you're curious, please check me out on LinkedIn. Feel free to bombard and connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm the only English-speaking Dominic Vogel, so please do feel free to reach out and connect. But where I really wanted to focus my energies for, at least right now, and like I said, I don't want to talk too long because I love for this just to be open Q&A. Literally ask me anything in terms of how you can advance in the field. I really just want to focus around what I feel are the critical points for people to be able to, like I said, take a huge leap into this field. It's the things that I wish I knew when I started, or things which I wish I would know if I was starting my career right now. So number one is to recognize that there's more to life than technical skills. I have had the opportunity to talk to so many university students, college students, people who are coming into the field after working for years in another field, and everyone always asks me, what security technology should I focus on? What security technologies are people looking for? That's table stakes stuff, right? The stuff that's going to differentiate you right now, the stuff that's going to make you a unicorn, it's going to be your people skills, right? We often refer to them as soft skills, but to me, they're people skills, foundational skills, right? Your ability to communicate, your ability to be an awesome team player, right? Your ability to be able to connect with with your teammates and with your bosses, right? Things like that are going to truly elevate you beyond what your technical skills are. Again, don't get me wrong, technical skills are important. But what we see right now is an extremely crowded market, especially with all the tech layoffs too that have been happening. And the things that I always tell people is, when I look at resumes, and I do a lot of hiring for my my fractional CISO clients, and we're hiring junior, often junior security analysts. We'll get hundreds, if not thousands, of applications, and this is for just small organizations. And these resumes, they all look the same, right? I painstakingly looked at all of them because I recognize that there's still a person at the other end of those resumes, but they all read the same, they all look the same, and for whatever reason, they're all following the same AI template that Copilot gave them. The ones that stand out are where I can tell it was truly written from the heart, right? Because the person was able to communicate in a written form in a way which they were able to connect with me, the reader, right? It's stuff like that's going to make you stand out, right? So number one, people skills, right? And people will often ask me, well, how do I get better at it? Just put yourself out there. Practice writing, practice talking. This sort of bleeds into my next one here. Don't just apply to jobs online, right? I cannot tell you how many people who reach out to me on LinkedIn and say, oh, Dom, I've been applying for work for the past year and a half. And I got nowhere. I haven't gotten any opportunities. I would say, well, tell me about your search. Like, what do you do? Oh, I apply for jobs. I spend 3 hours online every day doing that. And that's it, right? That's a waste of time, right? You need to get out there. You need to build relationships. I know this is often hard for some people. The thing I always tell people is that it's possible. Growing up, I was extremely introverted. I had 2 friends, and one of them was my brother. I've grown and evolved since then. I've been able to, like I said, through practice, be able to work on things like building meaningful relationships, right? So again, go to local networking events, go to local cybersecurity meetups or chapters, depending where you live. Quick Google search can help identify those opportunities, those areas, and go there and network, right? I live in Vancouver, and the recent graduates and people who I see entering the field, people who do things right, they focus on networking and building those relationships, right? And once they're known in the community, they end up getting hired. They get hired faster and they progress in their career faster compared to people who aren't networking and who aren't developing the relationships, right? We've seen this progression of people used to get hired based on what they know. Then it was who they know. Now it's who knows you. Right. And that brings me to my third point. It's around branding, right? We very much live in an era of personal branding, right? And it's so important, right? If people don't know who you are, you're more likely to get overlooked, right? So I think it's so important, whether it be platforms like LinkedIn, right? Professional platforms like LinkedIn, start putting yourself out there, start connecting with other maybe cyber professionals in your area, start engaging with their content and their materials, right? Start building a brand. Maybe start posting about certain cyber thing, certain cyber thing that you were working on. Stuff like that will get you noticed. That's how you build a brand. That's how people start talking about you, and that's how you get opportunities, right? So I think it's super, super, super important to recognize, like I said, that it's not just the technical skills, right? That's to me is like I said, it's table stakes, right? You obviously need that to get in through the front door. But it's sort of what I refer to as being able. There's one thing about being able to get into get to the door, get through maybe the first door, but in order to truly be led to the rooms in the back where all the opportunities get opened up, like I said, to me, it's around those things of developing the people skills. It's around focusing on building meaningful relationships over a long period of time. And third is focusing on personal branding. Those 3 things are the secret sauce. That is how you will absolutely set your career on fire. That's how you will absolutely progress in the field. I think it's absolutely, like I said, paramount to be able to do that sooner rather than later. Those are things that I didn't invest in until much later in my career. Had I done that sooner and at an earlier stage, my career would really have progressed much quicker. So I think it's really, really important to be able to, like I said, focus on that, identify that, and put energy towards that. Because, like I said, if that's what you want to do, if you want to really succeed and thrive in this field, that's what you got to do. So one last thought before, like I said, I'd like to open this up to just be a true AMA. You know, like I said, ask me anything. Last thing I wanted to add is that as you start off in your career, cybersecurity has evolved in terms of being very much a field of specialists, right? When I started, it was a field ruled by generalists. But early on in your career, try to expose yourself to as many opportunities as possible. Some people will think, I really love the hacking or the code or what have you. When I started my career, I was very much a hands-on keyboard type person. I love the tech. I thrived on the tech. All these years later, I don't. What do? I spend most of my time speaking to executives. I spend most of my time in boardrooms. I spend most of my time talking. Right? I didn't really know that I liked that. It would be good at that until I exposed myself to that and learning as many opportunities as you can. And as you get deeper into your career, focus on specializing. Specialists, like I said, as you enter your later in your career, those are the people that are going to thrive. Journalists in the field, again, you want to be a journalist early on and specialize later on in your career. So that's really my spiel. I hope there's some good tidbits there. But like I said, I'm very hopeful that maybe stokes some conversation here. And I'd love to, like I said, have this be more so an AMA where you can ask whatever questions you want and I can help you. Yes, Salma.
So I had a question kind of more so out of just curiosity. I did do a little bit of LinkedIn stalking, at least to me. I was just wondering, like, how is it like dealing with like legacy systems and tech debt? Because I've always been curious about that, but it's not something that's really like, it's not something talked about, and I've just been curious, like, how that experience was for you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping I'm interpreting your question as intent, but like the legacy tech stuff, you know, like it's something that I see a lot with, particularly with smaller organizations. They often will, when I'm working with them, they'll have not undergone digital transformation or have undergone any level of, you know, significant investment, IT or cyber or otherwise, you know, and it's often very difficult conversations because they haven't spent a lot of money on things, right? And when there's the opportunity to say, hey, you know what, you can't just be relying on this legacy stuff here. There's a lot of risk here. It always ends up being a very interesting conversation. But the thing that I really love about, you know, centering a conversation around legacy, and especially, like I said, with a lot of the small and mid-sized businesses that I deal with, it really comes back to, like I said, not talking about from a risk perspective or even from a cyber perspective, but again, a business outcome perspective, right? One of the things that I've learned as a cyber professional is that for the most part, no one outside of the people in the field actually give a damn about cybersecurity. So whenever you keep saying, oh, we got to do this because there's a risk, or we have to do this because it doesn't follow this framework, like I said, most people outside of the field don't care. You got to tie it to meaningful outcomes. You got to tie it to business outcomes. You got to tie it to something like growth, right? So being able to really, like I said, immerse yourself and understand that there's a world outside of cyber, and being able to understand other fields, like I said, like being able to, if you're working for a company, what is it that the company does? What are their critical business processes? What widgets or things that do they sell, right? Really understanding that and tying cyber to that, and tying, hey, here's how we need to, you know, how legacy systems could be impacting this. You end up having much more impactful conversations, right? Rather than, like I said, just going back to cyber. So I'm not sure if that was the angle you were thinking about for your question, but that's what I was picking up.
It was, yeah. Thank you.
I lost track who else wanted to ask, but like I said, don't worry about orderly fashion. Whoever wants to ask, just please ask.
Hi. I wanted to ask about how the field is kind of reacting to maybe the advances in quantum computing. Like, you may have heard recently I think a group in university in Shanghai, they were able to break RSA encryption. I don't know how accurate or big that is, or how that would affect like very soon, probably long scale, but how is the field changing, I guess, with respect to
Yeah,
this?
that's a really good question. You know what, and you know the whole thing with quantum is that to a degree there's some learned knowledge through what happened. I'm dating myself here because many of you may not even been born yet, but the Y2K problem that happened at the turn of the last century, right? There was experience there where there was a problem that was affecting every machine on Earth, and we had to go through a process to manage that, right? I think we're seeing that, and they're very much. I've heard the term coined Y2Q, where we're very much at a quantum reckoning of sorts. So it in some regards, I think it's really around managed change and just better change management and getting to more resilient encryption algorithms, of which there are. It's just like I said, I think it's going to be more of an exercise in change management. I think the cool thing with quantum too is, like I said, I think it offers opportunity to do encryption better for organizations. I think it's brought that to the forefront, where a lot of organizations outside of fields like financial services and healthcare, a lot of organizations don't pay a lot of attention to encryption. I think it's done a lot to bring that to the forefront, that, hey, here's an opportunity for us to do things better and more resilient. So sort of like how Y2K ushered in a new era, I think, of software engineering. I think this will help usher in a new era of encryption, which is very important to the field of cyber. I mean, that's all around the data confidentiality right there. So it's a core tenet of the field, right? So that's what I feel it'll do.
Just a quick follow-up with that. So we actually have protocols for kind of quantum resilient encryption.
Yep.
Yeah, that's actually great to know. So it's not like we have to invent like something that just goes against Shor's algorithm.
Correct. Yeah, no, it is a solvable problem, right? But for whatever reason, human nature seems to be solve that problem at the last possible minute and narrowly avoid the the speeding train. So, but unlike Y2K, where there was a definite date, like December 31st, 1999 was the last day we had to get that thing fixed. The Y2Q type problem, it's a little more nebulous, right? It's depending on how quickly people, organizations, researchers, nation states start cracking the current encryption standards.
Thanks.
Great question though. Who'd like to go next?
Hey, hi, I'm Shiv. Nice to meet you.
Hi, Shiv. Likewise.
I also did some small stalking on your LinkedIn. I wanted to ask you about, you've been in cyber for about 20 years or so, yeah?
Yep.
What security misconception do you see being repeated quite frequently in the industry?
That's a great question. I'm still laughing over the line "small stalking." I'll have to use that in the future. But to me, the greatest misperceptions that have been held throughout the time I've been in the field, for me, it's mainly with non-technical people, and particularly, I'd say it's still pervasive with in the small mid-sized business community, where I hear things like, "Oh, we're a small business, right? So no one's going to attack us. We don't have anything that's worth stealing," right? People were saying that 20 years ago. That's not true now, right? Like every organization is a target, right? So there's a lot of what I refer to as 1995 level myths that are still extremely pervasive across small and mid-sized businesses. And arguably, those misconceptions are the most dangerous because they provide, I truly believe, an existential crisis to small and mid-sized organizations. Large organizations, enterprise organizations, even large public sector organizations, they will survive data breaches. They'll survive a big attack. Right? An average size small mid-sized organization does not have that war chest. Right? They disappear like that, right? One of the things that isn't really known is that for every data breach story that you see about, a large organization that makes the news, anecdotally, I'd say for every one that you see of that on the news, is probably about 20 small organizations that bit the dust that not a lot of people knew about, but they went under because of a cyber attack, right? And that to me is that misperception that absolutely needs to change, because small and mid-sized businesses are the lifeblood of the economy, and in order for the economy to survive and thrive, we truly need them to become more awakened. I'm going to say woke, but that's probably the wrong term. Awakened to it.
So stuff like using legacy computers, using open network printers, even stuff like that opens up vulnerabilities to the company per se, and that brings them down.
Yeah, I mean, it's stuff like that, or stuff. I'll give a real quick example, like multi-factor authentication, right? You have people who still fight that tooth and nail, right? I had a small business. They were actually a porta potty company. They reached out to me, and they were brought down because one of their executives refused to put an MFA onto their email accounts. Account was compromised, and from there it was game over. Again, had they had MFA in place, that would not have been game over, but the executives absolutely refused. They said, "Oh, this is stupid. I don't need to have that on my account." So it's stuff like that, but it is still extremely pervasive.
Okay, good to know. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Very, very short ending question. You also say you're an avid beard grower. How many months are you in?
This is about 7 weeks worth.
That's insane. That's a solid beard. That's a solid beard. All right, thank you so much.
Yeah. Any other small stalkers out there? Any other more questions?
Yeah, I'm not sure. There's somebody ahead of me in the hands up, but I do have a question. Basically, you mentioned earlier, just as a heads up, I also wish I could open my camera, but it doesn't work right now. But anyway, my question is that you did recently mention, like, before we used to be focusing on the technical skills and really trying to be like really informative on what our job is, and later on we kind of figured out that now we need to start networking and kind of knowing people, and now we're at the point where we need people to know us, right? So my question is how do you kind of go around figuring out which or rather how do you kind of figure out how you can find people that in positions that would hire you, or people that you should network with, or really, because from my perspective, I mean, I'm doing cyber and I'm in tech only because, like, since I was a kid, I found it fun. Like, I just find it enjoyable, right? So if I'm trying to network, I'm not really trying to network for a job. I'm rather trying to network to gain more experience because it's something that I enjoy, right? So kind of what's the best way of going around that?
That's a great question. And to me, it's around networking with intention, right? Networking to me isn't going about saying, "Hey, can I have a job? Can I have a job? Can I have a job? Can I have a job?" That's not intentional networking, right? That's just being a pain in the ass. You're not going to get a job that way, right? To me, networking with intention puts the relationship first, puts a human first, right? It allows people to get to know you as you, right? And then being able to understand what are the different ecosystems where you could network, right? So it could be with your security peers or more technical peers, right? So they're more, again, depending on where you live, there are more maybe technical groups or technical meetups where you could focus, even from an online perspective. Then, like, as an example, I live in Vancouver. So Vancouver has a very vibrant chapter of ISACA, which I can't remember what the hell the acronym stands for, but it's a collection of information security and audit type professionals. A lot of hiring managers go to that. In fact, a lot of hiring managers use that as a talent pool, right? Because we have a lot of people coming out of colleges and universities that go to that to network, build relationships, and get hired from there, right? So again, it is different and depending on different areas, but knowing what types of groups you want to focus on is great. Another great area to focus on, and this one where I think LinkedIn is always fabulous. Reach out to recruiters. Right, recruiters are constantly struggling to find good, talented people in the field, people who want to enter the field. Right, if you're able to develop good relationships with a good recruiter, they'll go to bat for you because they often have it really hard trying to find, like I said, good people. Right, that's another area where you can focus on building, again, with intention, meaningful relationships. So look at those different ecosystems. Each ecosystem may provide a different intention or meaning, but like I said, when you focus on what's the intention of nurturing these relationships, right, and have meaningful purpose attached to that, that stuff will become more clear.
Okay. So
Does that help?
it does kind of clarify it a bit, but I still have somewhat of a similar question standing. So, like, for example, like at school, I mean, I can only learn so much about cybersecurity, and some stuff you just need to do on the job, right? You need to actually experience some real issues, and I mean, without really knowing what companies does what and what kind of issues they may have, how can I kind of know which groups, which areas I should go to really try and find those connections? Do you have any advice on that?
Yeah, so I'm not sure if I'm going to interpret that question correctly, but to me, when you are trying to land that first role, land a role somewhere where you can be part of a larger security team, right? I recognize not everyone wants to necessarily work in corporate, but working for a large organization as part of a larger security team is so invaluable in the first few years of a security professional's career, because you can immerse yourself in all sorts of different areas, all sorts of different opportunities, learn from people who have all sorts of different security experience. It's through that you'll be able to be like, hey, yeah, you know what? I really like focusing on this, or you know what, I really thought I'd like pen testing, but that really sucks. I'm going to go down this route here, focusing more so on governance and risk. I like doing that. Or, hey, you know what, I tried governance and risk. I hate pushing around that paper. I just want to focus on the technical stuff. You don't know that unless you truly immerse yourself in the only environments that offer that are generally larger organizations, right, with bigger security teams. I cannot tell you how many security people I meet who they'll join a security startup or start right out of school, and there's nowhere for them to learn, right? They just are doing it all themselves, right? And they're sort of learning on the go. But without the right ecosystem set up, you're learning more so from baptism by fire, and that's not necessarily the right, or I shouldn't say right. That's not necessarily the most comprehensive way of learning, right? Especially, like I said, earlier on in your career, right? That can lead to burnout. You're like, I hate security. I never want to do this ever again, right? So, to me, it's like I said, exposing yourself in controlled conditions with a larger security team to be able to help you better realize, hey, these are the paths I want to focus on, and or even looking at the other way, these are the paths I don't want to focus on.
Okay. So I have a follow up for that. So would you say, like, if for example I would be studying computer science, would you say if I started first programming a bit, just making some web apps, whatever, then if I started like within the same company that I work at, if I ask them to join a security team, is that like the best move there? Or
yes, 100%. A lot of people may struggle to land a security role right out of school. My suggestion is get hired in terms of help desk or something within the IT team, and then it's easier to move laterally once you're in there. Like I said, especially in bigger corporate organization, right? Once you're in, they're more likely to hire people internally, right?
Okay.
I just went through a process with someone I was coaching. They joined an IT help desk team for one of the big banks, Canadian banks. Was in that role for about 5 months, and then a junior opportunity opened up on the security team. He applied, got it, and now he's doing that. He's immersed himself in that. So the plan is over the next couple of years, he'll figure out again what he likes, doesn't like in cyber, and then hopefully be able to further specialize. And again, some people like being in corporate for a long period of time. That's okay. Some people learn in corporate and then say, I want to be an independent. I want to open my own consulting company, or maybe I want to work for a smaller company, right? But I'm a big believer that learning security in a bigger corporate sense is much more comprehensive to one's career. And I'd rather do that earlier on than later, because like I said, I think it opens more doors for you doing that earlier on compared to later.
Okay. All right, cool. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much all my questions. Thank you so much for answering.
Hey, no worries. thank you so much for those questions.
Yeah, thank you.
Hi, I just have a question.
Yeah.
Hello. Yeah, so in your 20 years of working in cybersecurity, what has been your favorite position and why? And then, like, is there any aspect to it, like any projects that you worked on or?
I appreciate that question. I'm really happy with where I am right now as an entrepreneur. You know, I burned out in corporate because I worked under an extremely toxic CIO, and I had the singular focus to get to a pinnacle spot in my career, work the corporate ladder, and I did. And I ended up going down a path I had never envisioned earlier on in my career. To me, I think it's really about trying to. I've embraced every position I've ever had because each of those positions has brought me closer to I'll say truer version of myself. Even that's true outside of cyber, right? And I love right now how I love being able to very much be through my leadership and coaching, be able to have a material impact on cyber leaders who are struggling with the people skills and really help them unlock their next level. Right? Like it's, to me, like I said, it's just enjoying the evolution of one's career and embracing the process. Right? I think we say it all the time in cyber. It's a journey. The same is true of one's career in life as well. I think embracing the journey, enjoying the journey has that's been the best part.
All right. Well, thank you for answering my question.
Yeah, that was a great question. Was there anyone else?
I do have another question. If nobody,
There's no order. Go ahead.
yeah. Well, what I was gonna ask is, for somebody breaking into cybersecurity, what are like the couple of things that you recommend learning first thing out of the get go?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I'll say this, you know, great. What managers are looking for right now, they're looking for people who are extremely coachable, right? That they can learn things, and they're willing to be, like I said, very very malleable and open to being coached. They're looking for team players, right? Long gone now is the era of, you know, celebrating or tolerating the brilliant jerk, lone wolf, whatever you want to call it. That no longer flies, right? So you need to be able to demonstrate that you're a team player, right? And that teams are better as a result of you being part of that team. And the third thing is, I mentioned earlier, the ability to communicate, right? Hiring managers are looking for people who aren't just someone who can just look for threats or use a piece of security technology. They're looking for people who can contextualize, who can take what's given to them or leveraging the systems that they're using and be able to communicate what they're seeing to the right audience. Right. That's really what they're looking for. Right. It's not, like I said, it's not about, oh, you need to have this particular piece of technology and you need to know how to use this type of platform. That can all be trained. Right. But what's harder to find, and where, like I said, why a lot of hiring managers are saying there's a talent shortage. It's not a shortage on talent, right? There's been a misemphasis on the skills that they're wanting to hire on, right? So people are focusing too much on the technical stuff, and they're not equipping themselves with the, like I said, with the other skill set that is greatly in demand right now.
Okay. So it's kind of like what you said, being a sponge, like really being able to absorb the information rather than like just going out there and just saying, yeah, I know this, and that. It's really about like, okay, all right, cool. Yeah, thank you.
Hey, no worries. I will also, just because there are any other questions, I think I mentioned this earlier, but in case anyone joined late, I genuinely appreciate having relationships. Anyone who is small stalk me on LinkedIn, you'll see there that I'm big on relationship building and friendship building. And there's a meeting link in my about section on LinkedIn. If anyone wants to have a follow-up conversation, like I said, I'm a big believer in trying to give back to this community and help. right? I'm always happy to schedule mentorship sessions, and that's free. I don't charge for that, but I'm always happy, like I said, to help people in their career. So if you want to have a direct follow-up conversation with me, because not everyone likes to ask a question in public or in group settings, please feel free. My meeting link is there. You can schedule a conversation, and I'm happy to help. And as you progress in your career and you all become industry rock stars, like I said, you can reach out anytime. I'm truly happy to help.
Hello, Dominic.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi. Well, I thank you very much for all your tips and advices already. That is so important, so cool. I'm from Vancouver Island. Right now, I'm arrived 2 years ago to Canada. I'm pretty new here. It's kind of difficult for me have a work already because I feel very uncomfortable sometimes for the English. It's not my hard skill already, but I try to do my best. I'm jumping right now to try to find a job in the cybersecurity area. I I try to do network also. I see and talk with many people, and also I saw things very interesting like people using AI to pen testing website. So and also other friends talk to me and say, oh maybe it's a good idea that you can do a bootcamp because they always have many connections and they can connect with companies that already have the validation of your skills. So I would like to ask for advice in that way. If you know any or AI, or if you see what tools they use common to jump to the cybersecurity world and testing.
What I that's yeah, that's well. First of all, I appreciate your question. Are out of curiosity, are you based near Victoria? Whereabouts on Vancouver Island are you?
Yeah, I live in Duncan.
In Duncan.
Near Victoria,
Okay.
yes.
Okay. Have you ever attended any of the ISACA Victoria events?
Yes, I
You
do.
have. Okay. Okay. Can you connect? Are you on LinkedIn? If you connect with me on LinkedIn, I'll connect you with a friend of mine in Victoria, and I'll see what we can do there.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Yeah, no worries. No worries. I see another hand.
So I've been inspired by Maria to also talk to you face to face. Don't think of me as a stalker. I promise I'm a good person outside of this. But I did want to ask, you've been in the industry 20 years, and obviously, work is work, so it's not all going to be, great. Has there ever been sort of a situation where they've brought you into the organization to perhaps just kind of like see feedback on their systems and their, I guess, security stuff, and you've told them like this is potentially like legal trouble? Because I feel like there's room for a lot of overlap between cybersecurity and the legal sector, but I just don't get to hear about it a lot because you can't blame the companies, but who does it really fall onto at the end of it?
Yeah, that's a really great question, and thank you for the face-to-face question. It's, and I think, and I'll go back to the relationship piece too. In that it's so important for security professionals to, whether they're in-house or if they're brought in as a consultant, to forge relationships with, again, maybe there's legal counsel, maybe there's a chief risk officer, right? Being able to help influence the decisions, right? Influence the conversations, right? Because as I mentioned earlier, for the most part, people don't care about cyber outside of this field, right? But it's about crafting the right narratives, crafting the right meaningful situational narratives that are going to be impactful to the ultimate decision makers in the organization, right? So sometimes that's around influencing and having conversations with legal counsel and painting that picture. So they're like, oh, that's not good. I need to go talk to the CEO, CFO, right? So I think that's why I keep harping on the fact that it's those people skills. That's what's truly going to be transcendental in doing meaningful work. It's not your ability to, write a bunch of code or pen tests or what have you, right? So if you truly want to be a rock star in this field, that's the stuff that's going to help you transcend.
Okay, yeah. So I was also wondering, like, what has been, I guess, your worst experience in the field? Just like out of curiosity.
My worst experience was burning out and working for an extremely toxic CIO who essentially just kept me around to be a scapegoat. Didn't take anything I said seriously. Didn't communicate what I communicated to the board. That felt really awful. And but in hindsight, and that happened over a decade ago. I'm grateful that happened because that pushed me out of corporate and put me on a path where I'm much, much happier. So yeah, it may have been the worst thing at the time, but as is true in life, and I truly believe this, there's no such thing as good luck or bad luck. There's only moments of we'll see. It just sometimes takes time for that level of perception to take hold.
I see. Okay. Well, thank you for your answers. These have been really insightful.
That's awesome. And feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn too if you're there.
I probably will, yeah.
Okay. Any other questions?
Hi, I'm not sure if you can see me.
Yeah.
My camera is really bad. I had another question. So you have worked with startups, you've worked with health authorities, and you've worked with financial firms. So what surprised you the most in terms of cybersecurity culture? And which one stood out to you the most? Which one did you enjoy the most?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I like working with startups in that it's always easier, I find easier to build in security from the get-go because they're in build mode, right? And it's an opportunity to do security from day one or earlier, I should say. But the other problem with startups is that they don't always have budget, and trying to do things is actually can be very measured and very difficult. It's sort of just, it's like building a big building, but with one Lego block at a time. So that can be really frustrating as well. With the larger organizations, especially like financial services, I was often able to, in financial services, be able to move big projects forward because, well, financial services around protecting information, and there's very clear laws and regulations and various cyber regulations and standards I could point to. So that was often easier to move things around. But that being said, the harder things was around, I'll say, the culture, right? There was a lot of deep-rooted cultural inertia that was difficult to overcome compared to small organizations or startups where I could be part of cultivating that culture, right? So the frustrating there was that it was like trying to turn around a massive ship, and unfortunately, more often than not, that ship ended up being more of a Titanic, right? So it's, as with anything. I mean, there's lots of lessons learned, and I think for anyone. For me, especially now as a outside consultant and a fractional CISO, the work when I go into an organization, I do a lot of pre-work before I figure out if that's the right organization for me to help, right? And that's, to me, has been the biggest lesson learned, that I can't help everyone, and not everyone wants to be helped when it comes to cyber. So the thing I really look for is there an engaged executives and or board, and have they green-lighted a meaningful budget to move things forward, and will I have meaningful either authority or access to meaningful authority to inflict that change? If the answers to those are not yes, I don't take them on as a client.
Makes sense. So as for somebody who's a newcomer, should I target startups, or should I target like bigger companies initially to learn them?
Yeah, that's a really good question. if there's the opportunity, like I said, even if it's just for 6 months or a year, I mentioned earlier, I really do believe it's good to just even immerse yourself for a short period of time with a large organization, because there's so many moving parts. You learn so much about business, about processes, about cyber, right? Being able to tap into other minds and people who've been in the field. You can learn a lot in even just a 6 month period of time compared to doing 6 months on your own for a startup, right? There was, and I know a lot of people it can be hard because startups are, again, not to say it's safe in corporate either, but startups can be very difficult environments to work for, and I had a coaching client who, even though he was fresh out of school, he was the chief information security officer for some Bitcoin company. Company went under, and he started trying to shop around and find work for an organization, but no one was calling him back. And he said, "I don't know when anyone's calling me back." And I said, "Well, let me look at your resume." And so on his resume was the education, one role which said he was a CISO, and nothing else. I said, "Well, CISO is like the pinnacle of this field, right? And now you're applying for a junior security analyst. Why would people looking at this were like, wow, either he doesn't know anything or he really sucked at being a CISO. Why would we bring him in here, right?" So we restructured the title of it, and lo and behold, he started getting lots of opportunities, right? So, and he's learned more now. He works for a municipality, and he's been part of a larger security team there than in the year and a half where he was the CISO at that Bitcoin startup, right? So again, that's not to say that you can't do that or you can't learn, but like I said, I really do believe that immersing yourself in a larger team earlier on in your career will help open more doors compared to doing it later.
Okay. And in terms of, I've tried applying to like a lot of big companies, like security analysts, like even IT analysts. I never got anywhere. I've gotten ghosted from about say 350 jobs so far. So what's your biggest tip on getting past that?
Yeah, good. Great question. So a couple of things. So one is, like I said, about the relationship building, developing relationships with recruiters, right? Being active on platforms like LinkedIn. You have to go where the hiring managers are, right? Do you mind me asking what area in the country you live in?
I live in London, Ontario, which is near, say, like 2 hours away from Toronto.
2 hours from Toronto. Okay. What? Connect with me on LinkedIn, and I'm going to connect you with a recruiter friend of mine, and we'll figure something out. But like I said, to me, it's about applying smarter, not harder. So these are solvable problems.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Hey, no worries. My pleasure. I saw another hand somewhere. Where was it? It's not showing me your full name, but if you Shaylin? Sorry if I'm butchering your name.
No, it's fine. I had a question. If you've ever gotten the chance, or if you have tips for networking internationally?
Great question. So you mean like if you're physically going somewhere else, or like you mean like platforms like LinkedIn where you can connect with people all over the world?
Kind of like going somewhere else.
Okay, yeah. To me, I'll say it's about researching the area where you're going, identify what type of local security associations, local security working groups are there, right? Try to establish some relationships with people on LinkedIn beforehand, so when you get there, right, you already have some familiar faces and names that you can leverage and network with, and like I said, to me, it's the same playbook that you would do here, but like I said, I think you just need to do some pre-work beforehand and leverage platforms like LinkedIn to identify those groups, identify people there that you can start developing relationships with first. So when you get there, you're able to just, like I said, keep that going.
Cool. Thank you.
No worries. You guys
Hi,
are thoroughly
Dominic.
thoroughly exhausting me here.
Hello.
Hi there.
I just kind of wanted to inquire about ISACA. I realized you brought it up a bunch, and kind of my quick Google search makes me come across it, and it kind of makes me think of like, oh, what is the difference between ISACA and CASIS, if you're familiar with CASIS?
I'm not familiar with cases. No.
Okay, well, I guess a follow-up question is, could you explain a little bit more about ISACA and what that org is?
Sure. And what I will say too is that there are great regional differences, right? So in Vancouver, ISACA has a strong presence. In Calgary, they have something called SPI or SPY. I can't remember there's so many acronyms I can't keep track. Today was my anniversary and I completely forgot. Shows you how straight my mind is. But it's hard to keep track of these acronyms. The important thing is research in the area where you live, the nearest metropolitan area, what associations offer the greatest opportunity for networking, right? So in Vancouver, as an example, ISACA is sort of an amalgamation of ISC squared, ISACA, and some other group, right? They've all sort of converged and they just are under the banner of ISACA Vancouver, right? So Google search that, find security professionals in your area, reach out to them on LinkedIn, say, hey, I'm new to the field, looking to network here. What type of association events are most relevant here in, insert city name, right? That's you got to do your homework there. So like I said, I was using ISACA Vancouver as an example here, but I recognize that ISACA doesn't necessarily have a presence in other parts of the country.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Hey, no worries. You've exhausted your questions. Oh, Lucas, I'm so tired already.
Sorry, Dominic. So I actually, I hope I'm the last one, but I actually have a question that I think everyone can benefit from. So you and I, we talked a bit, or we touched a bit on certifications. So could you just relay what you told to me about certifications and what you should look for in certifications earlier on in your career? Because most people in here, if they're in here, they're starting off with cybersecurity or trying to pivot to cybersecurity. So what do you think about certifications in cyber this early in someone's career?
Yeah. Good. I appreciate you bringing that up, Lucas. That's a very relevant question to ask. So yeah, without being too cynical, I mean, certifications play a necessary role to a degree. I'd say they're a necessary evil. But early on in your career, they are very important to help you get past certain HR gates. They play a role of, I'll just say, necessary table stakes in order for you to even be considered to be interviewed, right? So those include certifications like Security Plus, as an example, right? This doesn't mean that you need to cert up to the teeth and have a whole bunch of certs in order to get your first security job. Absolutely not. Something like Security Plus, which is a fairly inexpensive test, and if you're leveraging Amazon to get textbooks and with the test, I mean, all in, I think you'd be $500-600 type thing. So a huge investment, but something like that allows you to at least demonstrate to prospective employers that, hey, I'm serious, entry-level certification, right? And I'm here to play, kind of thing. As you get hired, right, leverage the organizations where you go, leverage their training dollars so you can get some additional maybe security certifications. But for me, like I said, I'm not a huge believer in them because I do believe that for the most part it is a money-making thing, but also recognize that there are certain key ones. Again, depending what paths you go down, there are other what I call gatekeeping certifications that you'll need in order to keep going down a certain career path. But for where you are now, from an entry perspective, something like Security Plus, there's also, it's the GSEC, I can't remember, but if you just look up entry-level security certifications, or like I said, reach out to me on LinkedIn and I'll double check that stuff. Focus on that, get that initial gatekeeping cert out of the way, and then you can keep going.
Awesome. Thanks, Dominic. So, okay, I think we're closing in to, you know, for us in Toronto, it's coming up to 8. So, but I think that is the end of today's session, I believe. So, yeah, I guess anyone on the council want to take over, or do we, should I think.
Yeah, so thank you, Dominic, for everything. Thank you for your insights and all your knowledge. Yep.
Thank you. Awesome. Thanks, everyone. I appreciate it. Have a great weekend.
Thank you, Dom.
All right, so basically, make sure to do the quizzes if you guys are still here. So yeah, so just a little bit intro, preview for day 4. We'll cover topics such